He said he loved me, but in reality he filmed everything we had and posted it online. I didn't find out from him, I found out from his brother, right at his house, right in front of his whole family. I thought I was going to have a normal dinner meeting my boyfriend's parents. What happened was the most brutal humiliation of my life, which turned into a war for my name, my body, and my right to breathe without fear. And if you think this story ends with that dinner, no, it was just the beginning. I still remember the way his mom's face froze when she saw me, like she'd seen a ghost she didn't want to see again. That's when I should have known something was off. I'm Maya, 29 years old, and I'd been dating Lustig for 4 years before I ever met his family. 4 years. Every time I brought it up, he'd mutter something about drama and boundaries, always brushing it off like it wasn't worth the headache. But when his mom called about their annual family barbecue, I overheard her say through the phone, "Why are you still hung up on that? Just bring her already." That clung to me the whole drive there. The second we pulled up, Lustig started tensing, his jaw tight, his hand gripping the wheel like it might shatter. "Just don't let them get in your head, okay? They're weird," he said. I laughed, but his tone wasn't funny. His aunt opened the door first. She blinked, her lips parted like she was about to say something, then gasped, "Oh my god, you actually came?" And then, dead silence. Behind her, his mom rushed in, all fake brightness and too loud cheer. "Oh, sweetheart, you must be starving. Stefan's here too, you'll love him." Lustig stiffened beside me. "Mom, stop." The name, Stefan, hung heavy in the air. Then a man stepped into view. Same eyes as Lustig, same sharp cheekbones, but something softer in the way he looked at me, like recognition, like guilt. Dinner was chaos. Everyone kept forcing smiles, throwing glances between me and Stefan, like there was an inside joke I wasn't in on. His sister got tipsy and whispered, "You're too good for Lustig. We all know it." At some point, Lustig squeezed my thigh, under the table, hard. "I need a beer," he muttered, dragging me up, but Stefan stood too. "I'll help," he said quickly, almost protective. In the kitchen, Stefan handed me a knife and a cutting board, but no food. Just stared at me, like he was deciding whether to say something that would burn everything down. "Your family's intense," I said, trying to laugh. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "They mean well. They just—" He stopped. Then Lustig stormed in, face red, breathing heavy. "We're leaving." Before I could even respond, his mom blocked the doorway. "Not until after dinner," she said, her eyes flicking between me and Stefan like something was about to snap. And it did, because that was the moment everything started unraveling. The moment the truth about what Lustig had done began to claw its way to the surface. And none of them, especially me, were ready for what came next. The air in that kitchen felt electric, like the second before lightning hits. Stefan's hands were shaking when he finally spoke. "She deserves to know," he said quietly, almost to himself. Lustig's head snapped toward him. "Don't." His voice was low, dangerous. "Know what?" I asked. Everyone froze. His mom's eyes went wide. His dad suddenly appeared in the doorway, tension radiating off him.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
"Enough," he said to Stefan. But Stefan didn't stop. He turned to me. "You don't know who he really is." Lustig lunged across the counter, grabbing Stefan by the collar, but Stefan shoved him off. Plates crashed. Somewhere behind us, his mom screamed his name, but the sound barely registered. "Get my laptop," Stefan said to his sister. His voice cracked. "Now." "Stefan, please," his mom begged, stepping forward. But Stefan's face was wet. Tears, anger, disgust. "She deserves to see it." When his sister came back, clutching the laptop like it was radioactive, I already felt my stomach dropping. Stefan opened a folder. Hundreds of video thumbnails filled the screen. My bedroom, my shower, my face. It took me a few seconds to even understand what I was seeing. Then it hit. The titles were sick, degrading. "Pathetic girlfriend thinks she matters." "Dumb toy doesn't know she's being filmed." My body went numb. I heard my own voice, laughing, moaning, through the tinny laptop speakers. I felt stripped bare in front of an entire family. Lustig didn't even deny it. He just stood there, jaw clenched, like he was the one who'd been wronged. His mom tried to reach for me, saying something about handling this delicately. But Stefan snapped, "Handling it? You were going to let her keep sleeping next to him?" Lustig muttered, "You don't get it. She'd never leave me for you." "For me?" Stefan shouted, voice breaking. "You ruined her life." That's when Lustig's dad grabbed him by the arm, his voice low and deadly. "You did this to yourself." I barely remember what happened next. Screaming, chaos, my vision tunneling. I stumbled out the back door and vomited in the grass, shaking so violently I could barely stand. Stefan followed me outside, his voice soft now. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know until this morning." Behind us, I heard Lustig yelling, glass shattering. Someone was crying, his mom shouting, "You're not leaving, not like this." But I was already gone. I ran barefoot to Stefan's car, climbed in, and slammed the door. That was the last time I ever saw Lustig's house. The last time I'd ever let him, or anyone, own a piece of me again. Stefan didn't say a word. The whole drive. The only sound was the hum of the tires and the shaky, ragged sound of my breathing. My phone kept lighting up with Lustig's name, call after call, until Stefan finally reached over and turned it, face down, on the console. When we finally pulled into a cheap roadside motel, he parked, but didn't move. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I'll get you a room," he said quietly. like he was afraid to startle me. Inside, the clerk didn't ask questions. I must have looked wrecked, makeup streaked down my cheeks, barefoot, trembling. I took the key with shaking hands, went straight to the bathroom, and locked the door. That's when it hit me all at once. The full weight of what I'd seen, every memory of every private moment, felt poisoned now. I sank to the floor, pressed a towel to my face, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. When I finally managed to calm down enough to think, I called a crisis hotline. My voice barely came out. The counselor on the other end was calm, steady, guiding me through slow breathing until I could form words again. She told me what Lustig did was a crime, that I needed to preserve all evidence, that I shouldn't delete anything, not even the things that made me sick to look at. It gave me something solid to hold on to, a list, a plan. When I came out, Stefan was sitting on the curb outside the door, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a handful of granola bars from the vending machine. He didn't look at me like I was broken. He just asked, "Do you want me to help you save everything before he deletes it?" We sat on the bed with his laptop between us. It took hours, screenshot after screenshot, every vile title, every upload date, every disgusting comment. Stefan copied the files to an encrypted drive, his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. At one point, I whispered, "How could he do this to me?" Stefan just said, "Because he knew you trusted him." When the last file was saved, he closed the laptop and said quietly, "We'll take this to the police in the morning." That night, I barely slept. I could still hear Lustig's voice echoing in my head, his drunken brag from one of the recordings. "She's lucky I even touch her." I thought about the girl I'd been, so careful, so loyal, and realized she was gone. But the woman left behind? She was about to start fighting back. The next morning, sunlight cut through the thin motel curtains like knives. My body felt heavy, my head pounding, but there was this new, strange steadiness under the nausea, something that felt almost like resolve. Stefan was waiting outside, leaning against his car with 2 coffees and that same tired, protective look. "Ready?" he asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The police station was busier than I expected for a Saturday morning. When I told the woman at the front desk that I needed to report a crime, she looked skeptical until I explained what Lustig had done. Her whole expression changed. Within minutes, a detective named Reed appeared. Mid-40s, gray at the temples, calm in a way that made it easier to breathe. He led us into a small interview room with flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of old coffee and paper. He took notes as I spoke, not interrupting once, just nodding as I stumbled through the story. 4 years of lies, manipulation, isolation, ending with those videos and the barbecue explosion. When I finished, my hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the water bottle he gave me. Reed said softly, "You did the right thing coming here." He explained that what Lustig did violated multiple state laws: non-consensual recording, distribution of intimate images, invasion of privacy. He told us exactly how the process would go: evidence verification, digital forensics, search warrants. It could take time, but there would be an investigation. Stefan handed him the encrypted drive like it was made of glass. Reed labeled it carefully, then asked for anything else: emails, messages, voicemails. I told him about Lustig's mother calling, trying to make me talk things through as a family. He nodded gravely. "Save that. Everything helps." When we left the station, I felt hollow, but anchored. There was an official case number now, something tangible, something real. Stefan drove me to my friend Blake's apartment across town. She'd been my best friend in college before Lustig pushed her away. When she opened the door and saw me, swollen eyes, shaking hands, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me into a hug that broke whatever was left of my composure. Stefan stayed long enough to hand me the drive and scribble his number on a piece of paper. "If he contacts you, call me or Detective Reed," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes looked haunted. That night, curled up on Blake's couch, I stared at the ceiling while my phone lit up with dozens of missed calls from Lustig. Every instinct screamed to answer, to demand why, but instead I turned the phone face down and whispered to myself, "You don't get to hear me anymore." And for the first time in years, I felt the smallest flicker of power returning. 3 days later, Lustig's name popped up on my phone again. 17 missed calls, 3 voicemails, all variations of the same thing: crying, begging, swearing he didn't mean it, that he was drunk, that it wasn't like that. Then came the darker ones. "You're ruining my life. You think anyone will believe you? If I go down, you're coming with me." I didn't reply. I saved every message. Detective Reed called that afternoon to say he'd listened to the audio file Stefan had given him, Lustig's slurred confession, the degrading recordings, even the metadata linking Lustig's account to the uploads. "It's strong evidence," Reed said, "but he's going to fight back. People like this usually do." He wasn't wrong. By the next morning, Lustig's mom, Marina, was calling me. She left this sugar-sweet voicemail saying, "We can fix this. He's sick, but he loves you. Don't destroy his life over one mistake." Then his dad, Reese, left a completely different message. Low, ashamed. "You did the right thing. I'll cooperate with the police. I'm sorry we didn't stop this sooner." That's when I realized the family was splitting apart under the weight of what he'd done. Stefan texted me later. "Mom's losing it. She's trying to get a lawyer for him already. Be careful." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how Lustig filmed me for years. How many strangers had watched those videos. How he bragged about training me to believe I was lucky to have him. Then I remembered something. 6 months ago, Lustig had given me this wooden jewelry box for my birthday. Dark oak, velvet lining, heavy for its size. It was still in a bag by my suitcase, the last piece of him I hadn't thrown out. When I lifted it, the weight felt wrong. Off. I peeled back the velvet lining and froze. A tiny camera lens was staring back at me. Still recording. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. Blake grabbed a plastic bag and we sealed the box inside without touching it. I called Reed, my voice shaking so bad I barely got words out. He showed up 20 minutes later with gloves, photographed everything, and took it for evidence. "This changes things," he said grimly. "Hidden devices make the case airtight." When he left, I sat on Blake's couch, shaking, watching the empty space where that box had been. I thought I was done being violated. But the truth was, Lustig had been watching even the moments I thought were safe. And suddenly, revenge stopped feeling like an abstract word. It started to feel like a necessity. 2 days later, Reed called again. This time his voice sounded tense but almost triumphant. "We executed the search warrant this morning," he said. "We found 2 more cameras in Lustig's apartment, plus multiple hard drives. He's in custody right now." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. My hands went cold, my mouth dry. He's arrested?" "For questioning," Reed clarified. "He lawyered up immediately, but we have enough evidence to hold him temporarily. You did everything right, Maya." But by nightfall, Lustig was already out on bail. That's when the fear came roaring back. The idea of him out there, angry, unpredictable, with that same rage in his voice from all those voicemails. I started checking the locks 3 times before bed, jumping at every car engine outside. The next morning, a flower delivery showed up at Blake's apartment. No note, just blood-red roses. I knew exactly who they were from. I called Reed, and he told me to photograph everything, then throw them out. "Document every contact," he said, "even if it looks like an apology." I didn't want apologies anymore. I wanted him to feel powerless. Stefan texted that night. "Dad's furious he got out so soon. Mom's still trying to spin it as a misunderstanding." Then another text, slower this time. "I want to help you end this the right way." That's when the idea started forming. Not revenge in the petty sense. Something cleaner, colder. Something that made him feel what it's like to have control ripped away. When Reed confirmed the preliminary hearing date, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I worked with Justina, the attorney Reed recommended, to prepare my victim impact statement. We made sure it included every disgusting title, every screenshot, every word Lustig had said in his recorded confession. The goal wasn't just evidence, it was exposure. The day of the hearing, Lustig was forced to sit there while those words echoed through the courtroom. His face drained when the videos played, his voice slurring, bragging, laughing. Everyone saw who he really was. His mother sobbed quietly in the back row. Stefan sat beside her, staring straight ahead, jaw clenched. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't look at Lustig. I looked at the judge. "He took my privacy, my safety, my trust," I said. "So I'm taking his control." The courtroom was silent when I finished. By the end of that day, the judge granted a full protective order and ruled that the case would move forward to trial with multiple felony charges. Outside, Lustig tried to shout after me, voice cracking, "You ruined my life, Maya." For the first time in years, I turned, met his eyes, and said calmly, "No. You recorded yourself doing that. That was my revenge, not rage, not destruction, just truth, played out loud, where everyone could finally see him for what he was." The weeks after the hearing felt like living in 2 different weather systems at once, sunlit, normal moments punctured by sudden storms. Dina kept telling me to pace myself. Blake brought casseroles and blankets. Reed checked in like clockwork. But Lustig's presence didn't stop being a shadow. It just got sneakier and uglier. One morning, I left Blake's building and found one of my tires shredded, my driver's side mirror folded into a useless tooth. Someone had scraped a slur along the passenger door and left a smear of something dark on the hood. My hands shook so hard I could barely unlock my phone. Stefan was across the street when he saw me, face gone hollow, and he came over like he could physically hold the world together for me. Reese showed up 30 minutes later, breathless, eyes red. He kept saying, "This is not how we raised him," like saying it would cinch it closed. Marina called twice. I didn't pick up. Reed told me to document everything and not touch the car. He took photographs and filed a violation report the same day. It felt administratively clean, but emotionally filthy. Someone had invaded another layer of my life and left it in pieces on the pavement. I kept picturing that tiny camera in the wooden box, staring up at me like a roach that had survived everything. The harassment didn't stop at vandalism. A smear campaign lit up my email. Fake accounts, doctored stills, men tagging me in posts with cruel comments. Someone at the office whispered, "You okay? We saw..." As if privacy were an optional thing you could fold up and tuck away. HR was great, protective, procedural, but walking past the break room felt like moving through glass shards. Lustig was trying to push me back into hiding. That's when revenge, sane, surgical, legal revenge, cemented into a plan. It wasn't about breaking him. I'd already learned that smashing someone's life doesn't heal what was taken. It was about removing his power, exposing the scaffolding he built to watch and degrade me. I called Justina and Stefan, and we built a list, evidence copies to the prosecutor, an email to Lustig's landlord about hidden cameras in his unit, a discreet packet of documentation sent to his employer with a note that said, "This is an ongoing criminal investigation." We didn't leak or smear. We delivered verifiable facts to people who had the authority to act. The next week, his boss called Reed after reviewing the packet. I got a text from Stefan. They put him on unpaid leave. My stomach dropped and then, absurdly, clenched with a small electric relief. Someone who'd built a life on my silence was being forced into accountability by institutions that could make him stop. But he didn't stop with policy. One night, a brick flew through Blake's living room window. While I was there, no one hurt, glass glittering like cruel confetti. That was the moment the case felt dangerous in the way all survivors dread. Not just humiliation, but threat. Reed expedited a warrant. They tightened bail conditions. The judge ordered stricter GPS monitoring after seeing the new evidence and the broken glass photos. Lustig's bail was reduced, his movements tracked. Marina began to crumble publicly. Pressured by Rice and Stefan, she finally stopped defending him in calls and started saying apologetic, hollow things that no longer landed. Through it all, Stefan stayed careful and steady. He came with me to depositions, sat through interviews in silence except to squeeze my hand when I forgot to breathe. He brought me a pair of warm gloves one cold afternoon and said nothing about how his parents treated us. His silence was its own apology. There were ugly nights, death threats in my voicemail, a stranger loitering by my car, but there were also tiny brave victories. A coworker who'd glanced away now offered to walk me to the subway. Blake taped a small sticker on my fridge that said simply, "You are not what he made you." I started sleeping in my new apartment more nights than not. Dina taught me to notice the inch-wide wins, the hours I could tolerate a trigger without crumbling, the time I laughed at a bad commercial with Blake and didn't disintegrate afterward. The legal machine groaned forward. Discovery, depositions, the prosecutor building a mountain. From the hard drives and hidden cams and Lustig's own drunken confession. Yet real life kept throwing pebbles, then stones at the glass windows I was trying to rebuild. I learned to call them in, to show Reed everything, to let the court and the law eat the chaos instead of letting it eat me. A week before the preliminary trial, I found a torn-up page from an old love letter in my trash, his handwriting, a line about never letting go. I taped the pieces together like a shrine breaking. I sat on my floor, fingertip to the jagged edges, and realized the point wasn't to erase the past, but to take ownership of it. He had recorded me, then tried to own me with those files. I was not his to catalog. Outside sirens had become routine. Inside, I was learning to breathe through them. The storm was still here. But something else was coming too. Structure, witnesses, testimony, and the slow, steady work of taking back the night. The trial came faster than I expected, though the months leading up to it felt like living in suspended time. Every day was waiting for court dates, for updates from Reed, for the next flare-up of panic that came without warning. When it finally started, I sat across from Lustig in that cold courtroom, my palms pressed together so tight they went white. He looked smaller somehow, not weaker, just diminished. His hair was longer, his suit too big, like he'd been swallowed by his own choices. The prosecutor laid everything out in meticulous, unbearable order. The hidden cameras, the encrypted hard drives, the cloud backups dating back 5 years. The vile titles, he gave the videos. Reed testified about the search warrants, about how Lustig tried to wipe his devices when he realized they were closing in. Stefan testified next, calm and clear, describing the day of the barbecue, the family's attempt to hide what happened, and his decision to expose it anyway. Marina cried the entire time. Reese sat rigid beside her, jaw locked. When it was my turn, my stomach flipped. I read my statement out loud, voice shaking but steady enough to fill the room. I thought I was safe with him. I thought love meant privacy. He turned every moment of my life into content. He made me a product and sold my humiliation. I want the court to see me, not as a victim, but as the person he tried to erase. Lustig didn't look up once. The judge's ruling came down 2 days later, guilty on multiple counts of invasion of privacy and unlawful recording. No jail time, but strict probation, mandatory therapy, GPS monitoring, no internet access without supervision, and registration as a sex offender. 5 years of control, of eyes watching him. When the sentence was read, Lustig finally looked at me, briefly, bitterly, and I swear there was something like confusion in his face. Like he still couldn't grasp that I wasn't the girl he'd trained to obey. Afterward, Justina met me in the courthouse hallway with the civil settlement paperwork, $50,000 in damages, paid over 3 years. His attorney's written apology, no contact clause, permanent. It wasn't closure, but it was structure, something he couldn't rewrite. Over the next months, life didn't suddenly heal. It softened. The nightmares came less. I started sleeping without checking the locks 6 times. I moved into my own place, quiet and full of light. I hung my paintings on the walls, mountain scenes, endless sky, and for the first time in years, they didn't feel ironic. Stefan and I still meet for coffee sometimes. He never crosses lines, never tries to rewrite the past. He just asks how I'm doing, and when I tell him I'm okay, he nods like he actually believes it. Dina shifted my therapy sessions to twice a month now. We talk about rebuilding trust, not in others, but in myself. Some nights I still wake up and remember those video titles, those comments from strangers. But now, instead of shame, what hits me first is anger, clean and sharp, the kind that reminds me I survived. The last time I saw Lustig was at a mandated hearing 6 months later. He walked past, pale and silent, that GPS monitor blinking at his ankle like a heartbeat. And in that moment, for the first time since the barbecue, I felt completely safe. He had watched me for years, but now, finally, the whole world was watching him.